So this is my radio unit.
I see.
Yeah, so I strap this on right down in here when I'm on stage.
It's a wireless.
Exactly. It's a wireless unit. I can play without all the mucky muck.
And you can run anywhere with that.
Exactly. Welcome to That Pedal Show. Nigel here.
Marty here.
Richard here.
Hello!
Hey everyone. Thanks for tuning in. See what I did there? We're today going to be talking about wireless systems with our dear friend Richard Pratt.
Hello.
So Richard's been on the show a bunch of times before. You may know Richard as guitar tech extraordinaire from Biffy Clyro. He's the man running around in the background trying to control the insanity. But you're also currently on tour with a Prodigy.
That's right, yeah.
And
other looking after Stormzy.
all that stuff.
Doing some other bits and pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Busy.
So we've never done wireless on the show before, and we want to talk about why you'd use a wireless system, the difference between the wireless systems. You know, we've got wireless systems that range from 150 quid to $5,000 here. So we're going to go through them and see, you know, which ones are used when, the pitfalls that you might have with them.
Yep.
Just go through, you know, everything you want to know about wireless. So let's start. Let's just have a quick chat about the history of wireless. Actually, Mick looked this up before, and the first company to do a wireless system was?
Have a guess. It was?
Fender.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Never caught on though. Sorry, I'm going to be in and out of the shop today. 1961, Leo Fender developed a radio system. Radio system, but it never really caught on. It was terribly expensive, but by all accounts it looked kind of similar to what we would expect now, a transmitter and a receiver. But it wasn't really until 76 when Schaefer, famous because
of AC/DC. Yes, the preamp.
and Nady in the same year,
I have one of those,
which was actually called Nasty before Nady, would you believe, introduced kind of the units that caught on and started the guitar wireless revolution.
Okay.
Famous user of Schaefer, Dan?
Angus Young. So the amazing thing about the Schaefer wireless system, Angus much preferred his sound when he used it as opposed to when using a cable. And it all came down to the preamp that they use. So now you can buy a pedal, I think we have one there, that's just got the Schaefer preamp in it. So if you're a massive Angus fan,
Right.
you're plugging into your cranked Plex or your JCM 800 and you want to get your Angus on,
Yeah.
kick that in, it gives you the preamp from the Schaefer wireless.
Wow.
Very cool. So let's start in the radio era, VHF, UHF. I guess we started at the beginning, right? So which would be VHF.
Yep. That was the earlier systems,
Right.
which you would famously get your taxi driver interference with.
Okay, so that's the
thankfully we've
spot of
moved
that
away
moment,
from
right?
Yeah.
That's now just going ready for takeoff, runway through. Right. Okay. So what enabled the guy up in the tower? What enabled his microphone to break through into that radio unit?
It's because the wave's so much longer, so that it's easier to get the interference with them.
Right.
With the VHF.
VHF.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was mitigated when we went to UHF. So VHF, very high frequency, UHF, ultra high frequency.
Yeah.
So we're shifting up the...
Yeah, going higher and higher in the megahertz, and then the wave gets much tighter.
Right.
It's harder for anything to interfere with it.
Okay.
Obviously not impossible, but yeah.
Right.
It's certainly not. Then you're away from VHF, which is absolutely everywhere. And then you're going into much more specific bands.
Okay. And so UHF was used and is still used.
Yes.
But it's hard to buy now. Is that right?
That's right, yeah, because mobile phone frequencies are taking over as well. So the spectrum, which is regulated by Ofcom in the UK, has slowly squashed the instruments into certain bands, which is why the consumer units have been pushed into the 2.4 gigahertz, right up at the top end of the spectrum.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that heralds the shift from analog to digital, right?
Yes.
So if we're talking VHF and UHF, that's analog.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if we're talking, for example, the Boss and the Line 6 on the pedal board,
Yep.
they're both in the digital
Yes.
world and operating at those really high 2.4 gigahertz frequencies.
Yeah.
As I understand it, anyway. What about the licensing then? Because that changes across the world.
Mhm.
In order to operate a VHF or a UHF system, you need a license, right?
You do in the UK. It's got to be on channel 38, which is sort of a buzzword, sort of around the 606 frequency. So in the UK, you pay Ofcom your 85 quid a year, and you get part of the shared license. So anyone with the with either of those two systems can be in on that, and it's got a certain amount of channels that allows you to just show up at your local venue. You don't need to go venue specific licensing. You can just start playing in that set bandwidth, as it were.
And what's the danger in that? As in that set bandwidth, you've paid your license fee,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I've been allocated this frequency, or I can work within these frequencies.
Yeah.
So if you turn up, who else? I mean, what's the danger of people being on the same frequency or interfering and stuff like that? How does that work?
There is a danger that, because if everyone's given that relatively short bandwidth, if everyone shows up at a festival and we've all got that and we all turn it on, we're all going to interfere with each other, interfere with certainly intermodulations of those frequencies. You don't have to be on exactly the same frequency.
Right.
You get harmonics of it which interfere with other, and it gets very, very, very eggy quite quickly.
How long did it take you to wrap your head around that? Because you're talking about radio frequency physics at that point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thankfully, Shure do most of it for you, because they've got all the bands. They've got groups and channels, so you
Right.
can say, right, we'll jump in group one and we'll choose channel 1, channel 2, and then they're split up so that the channels can't intermodulate with each other.
okay.
So they've done all the mathematics for you.
Right.
So you pick yourself a group that's in channel 38, so that's
Right.
legal, and then you go for the various channels, and it splits up your frequency for you. So let's say you're running 10 channels of wireless for your show. You're not going to intermodulate with yourself, which can be an issue.
Okay.
So you know that you, the bass player, your in-ears, everything's going to be fine. It's all going to sit nicely together.
Right. Okay.
If then, another band shows up at the festival and they're playing exactly the same game, then they can start interfering with you, which is why at a big festival, you've got someone who is looking after all the frequencies for the entire site. Sometimes Ofcom will be there as well.
Really?
And they'll have a big scanner out with the whole wireless spectrum on it. And in advance, they'll have licensed specific frequencies for each band. And so in the advance of the festival, you say, right, we're wanting 50 lines of RF, let's say. So they'll say, these are yours and these are the hours you can use them in. So you can't turn it on when
Isn't that
someone
mad?
else is playing. And it's great. So you're like, oh, that's perfect. So you tune it all up. Happy days. And then sometimes there'll be someone, at the DJ tent turns his mic on, and then that tramples all over you because he's not playing the game, let's say.
Right.
So then the RF people will give you a fresh frequency. There you go. That will work still within this spectrum. So nobody's going to intermodulate with each other at all for the whole site. And it's very, very clever.
I want to take a quick step back. So you've been with Biffy since, it must be nearly 20 years now.
It's 20 years, get less for murder.
So when you started,
Yeah.
they were still, I'm assuming, this really wasn't a thing like 20 years ago. There were still three of them just making incredible music.
Just a 3-piece, 4 Boss pedals.
Right. And a cable.
And a cable.
Right.
Off you go.
So now I can't imagine a show without Simon and running around. at what point did you say we have to go wireless? There's no other choice.
Yeah, there was a specific moment because I joined them at the end of Infinity Land. So they were doing big clubs, Academy One sort of stuff. And it was all great. And then the band released the Puzzle, which was
Such a good album.
It was out on not Warner Brothers, but one of their record labels.
Right.
And they were getting the big push.
Right.
So the people at the record label said, you guys need to step up your game. And they said, we're going to give you a bit of cash and we're going to sort out your live rigs. So we got some of the guys from Muse over to come and tell me what to do, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've got these guys who've done the 20 years of doing it and they've been building all these rigs and so on and so forth. So they sat down with us and they essentially taught me the wireless side of it.
Right.
And then since then, they've been obviously building up. As the technology moves on, you have to keep up with it.
Right.
Okay. Because that was before the digital came in. So we had the old analog systems, which is like the UR4D there.
Okay. Which is the one at the bottom.
Yeah, they're about 12, 15 years old, probably.
Okay. But you can't get them anymore, right?
I don't think they make them anymore. No, I think they've moved on to the Axient,
right,
which is the digital stuff.
Okay. But it's not just guitars on wireless, right? Yep. So if we think, Biffy, 3 guys, but there's 5 musicians on stage, right? So you've got 2 guitars and a bass on wireless. But what else do you have on wireless for Biffy?
So every musician's got an in-ears pack.
And that's all wireless?
That's all on wireless. Every technician's got an in-ears pack on their own mix as well, all on wireless.
Okay.
The pyro guy, he'll have a wireless setup as well.
Pyro guy.
Yeah. Pyro guy.
The lighting
guy.
It's
our dream. It's our dream. We know we've made it when we have a pyro guy.
If you're doing a show to telly, you want the lights to be completely in sync with what the band are doing for broadcast. So then the lighting guy will have an in-ears pack as well.
Right.
Otherwise, the lighting guy, which we'll get into distance and latency later, he's hearing it a few milliseconds behind because he's at the lighting desk, isn't he? So when you put it on telly, if he's not on wireless, you're like, this guy's not keeping up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many wireless systems would you have on stage with Biffy?
I think for Biffy, we're not crazy. We're only about 20. Like, it's not a lot.
So 20 isn't a lot?
No.
What's a lot?
My mate's going out with the Lumineers soon, and they're 90 channels per show.
90 channels?
90 channels of wireless, which is difficult.
Yeah. And so if you're doing a tour, do you have to map those 90 channels for every gig?
Yeah.
So every
single gig, they'll all be licensed venue specific for something like that. You can't show up on the shared license because there aren't 90 channels in the shared license. So you need across the entire UHF spectrum that your gear will go, you have to do 90 that are legal to go in that venue, in that country at that time. So that's a lot of advance work before you even go on tour.
Wow.
And then you show up.
I had no idea.
You show up and none of it works. So then you have to scan around that and make it happen on the day in real time. Because obviously there's models and stuff saying this is what the spectrum looks like in, let's say, the Festhalle out in Germany.
Yeah.
But you show up, you turn it all on, and then someone down the road's doing something.
Let's just
you're in trouble.
Go a bit deeper just to make sure that everyone understands. When you talk about the spectrum, right, there's a frequency spectrum that you have to work with.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you are given certain sections of that spectrum to work with per gig.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you have to go into those and say, okay, we're going to put this one here and this one here and this one here.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, right.
And the clever lads have got their computer with wireless workbench. So you put into wireless workbench, you say, I've got 20 channels of the Axient. I've got a couple of these analog ones that the guitarist insists on using.
Yeah.
And then workbench will sort all that out for you and say, these will work on these specific frequencies and you won't have any interference.
Okay.
And you tell it what frequency band you're allowed to use in that country or at that venue at the time. So
I guess that is where the really professional units like the Shaw and that come into their own.
Yes.
Because we've got a couple of the consumer units here, the Boss and the Line 6. And you couldn't do that
No,
with those sorts of units,
what's
right?
the line? It's got 6 channels there,
Right.
And I don't think you can use all 6 at once. You couldn't have 6 if you're playing. I don't think with those because I think
Okay.
even they overlap with each other slightly.
Right. Okay. Wow.
That's nuts. All right, well, let's bring it back to kind of... Richard's given us a fantastic overview of what happens on a massive pro stage. Let's bring it back and say, what are the questions we've got about these units then? Because the Line 6 relay, been out a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
It was I guess, kind of a game changer in a way in consumer level wireless units, because before that there was all the NADIs,
Yeah.
all those true diversity systems, which you probably had,
Yep.
VHF to begin with, UHF as we've discussed. I guess it was about 15 years ago from memory. I can remember them starting to turn up, these
Yeah.
2.4 gigahertz type units. So I reckon why don't we just get into some of the questions about, because the biggest question we all have about wireless, how do they affect my tone?
Yeah, for sure.
Should we do that?
Yeah, okay, great. So the guitar is going into here, into the switcher. The send is going into the transmitter pack. I've got 4 transmitter packs here. The Line 6 Relay G30. I've got the Boss WL60T. I've got the older Shaw analog unit and the new Shaw digital unit. So I've got the send going in to the transmitter. That signal is then picked up by the receiver over here, and the output of the receiver comes back into the return of these loops. So as I scroll through these, we're going to be hearing the guitar into these systems, individually, and then I can bypass it and go straight in. So we'll be able to sort of A/B.
The really important thing to say is the only difference from the way Dan's got it set up here to having your pack strapped on
wireless
right down here is an extra 10 feet of cable.
Exactly.
And we've deliberately used actually and probably 6 to 8 foot cable.
Yeah.
So we've used the shortest possible cable with the minimum capacitance possible.
Yes.
That's probably the Silverflex one, is it? So it's like
Really bright and
45, 50 picofarads per meter. It's a really, really low cap cable. That is the only difference from having your pack on your strap with the short lead there. That's the only difference.
Yes.
Just to make that clear.
And we've also got some distortion and fuzz pedals so that we can show you what happens with wireless with distortion and fuzz, because that's another question. Buffers, all that stuff. All right, so today we've got it's the Fender Bassman Bass Breaker. It's a it's a Bassman but 2x12, right?
Correct. Custom shop amp from 2002.
Yeah. And we've got at the end we've got the collider delay and reverb, because there's no reverb in this amp. So this is the guitar into the amp. Okay. Line 6. mean, to be fair, they all sound pretty good.
They do. Yeah.
The Shure ones have got a bit more to them, as one would expect. But I think they're also still a little bit louder.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What's mad is that they all sound different.
They all sound different. Yeah, yeah, they do. But I don't particularly dislike any of them.
Okay.
They're fine. What I want to do, so we're going to stick an overdrive pedal on. This is the surgery. Richard's come all this way, and he's got a pedal out. So just Surge from Kasabian.
That's
this
right.
is a pedal
yeah.
you make for him.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, his signature sound.
His signature sound.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kick that on.
Yep.
Then we're going to do the same thing, right? We'll go through the wireless things and see how it sounds. Okay, so this is the...
I can only apologise for not having the camera pointed at Dan while he was playing the guitar.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's probably a good time to have a conversation about capacitance, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big things we're hearing there.
So what goes on when you plug, if you've got a pack handy that I can stick right down there, like my radio unit.
Yeah,
Is there a spare one floating around, the one we have for the gag? Okay, so this is your transmitter. Now, normally, when you've got your guitar plugged into your pedal board, you've got a decent amount of cable. That cable, if you've got standard passive pickups, that the capacitance in the cable interacts with the peak of the pickups, the resonant peak and the frequency. So the more capacitance at the cable, we move that resonant peak down lower. The less capacitance, the resonant peak moves up higher. So often when we think that we're hearing the capacitance in the cable, what we're actually hearing is the way that capacitance interacts with the resonant peak of the pickups. Now with a wireless unit, we've got that much cable going straight into, it gets buffered as soon as it goes to the input. So not only is it going through, the buffer and the sonic things that add, but we're really moving that resonant peak right up. So what we get is this high, like often this really full-on glassy top end. So I think all of these units have the ability to add in a cable simulator.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Basically a tone control.
Yeah.
Right? just to get you back in the realm of the sound of a longer cable.
That's what I was doing when
Yeah.
I was... Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you will have heard, Mick, adding the cable capacitance in the line 6, you've got 3 different levels of cable capacitance.
I think maybe it's off 15 and 30 feet.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Boss similarly has got off short and long.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Whereas the Shaw ones, I mean, tonally, can you affect much more change in those?
You can, yeah, and it's a smoother sweep as well.
Right, okay.
You're not on 3, you can go as far as you like. But I find most of people quite enjoy that sparkliness that they get back. They're like,
Right.
"Oh, that's where it's gone from my bedroom because I had a shorter cable there." Do you know?
Okay.
Like certainly working with an artist called Dave who had
So
only
Dave, he had the
the flaming
flamethrower
guitar
coming
yeah.
out of his guitar.
Yeah,
awesome.
He obviously had to be
awesome.
wireless for that.
Yeah.
But going from he liked the sound of the wireless better, is what I'm trying to say.
Without any...
Without anything,
Okay.
he wanted it totally flat because it sounded more like he was just with his little combo.
Okay. Yeah,
in the
cool.
house with a
Well,
really short cable.
We know someone else who preferred the sound of the wireless as well.
Yeah, Angus.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they recorded with it, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah. So which you'd never do in a normal studio environment.
sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as we heard, the surgery, what's the input impedance of that?
That's 1 meg.
It's about 1 meg. So it's about the same as a Boss pedal.
Yeah.
And we do have a little bit more level coming out of the wireless units. I think all of them.
Yeah.
So, it hits the surgery. It sounds great. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing with the fuzz face. And one question that a lot of people have, especially with germanium transistor effects, is because they have such a low input impedance, what happens when you put them with a wireless system? So I'll hand that back to you. Okay, so we're going to turn the fuzz on and, just guitar into fuzz as per normal. That's a
Amazing.
fuzz,
Yeah,
right?
love it.
And then the obligatory all the way down.
Yeah.
So now, one of the key things about a really good germanium fuzz is that cleanup. So the range that I've got from till it just basically goes right, but that is a key thing with the fuzz. No matter how much simulated cable capacitance we add into that, we lose that with a fuzz. So line 6.
Wow. It didn't like that, did it?
No, not at all.
Wow.
So what's going on there is we've got the guitar going to the wireless systems receiver into the fuzz, and then that buffer and everything driving the fuzz to a point where it's not happy. So what is the way around that? I only know of one way to do it.
Yeah, and you were telling me this earlier, and I was gobsmacked. Like nobody does that.
So if I can grab that strap from you.
Yeah, man. There you go.
Perfect. Now, you were saying, I'm going to have a look at this in a minute, the way that Richard attaches wireless to straps. But you have this so that the antenna is pointing down.
Yes.
Which means you can get to the on-off quickly.
In the dark, I can grab it. I know exactly where it is. Yeah. In the heat of battle.
Because that's it. Like, you're in the dark a lot, and you've got to get a tiny little
Tiny little...
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so... Oh. Not what I'm doing. All right, okay. So this pack, what's this one connected to?
It's connected to... I'm going to turn it on for you. There you go, and that should show up in Show Digital now.
Show Digital. Okay, so... So what I'm going to do... let's grab this one. So, there's the fuzz. What I'm going to do... there's the input.
Into that.
That's that. So
Will that fit
this
in
is
yours?
going to... This is going to go... other way around. That's it. So out of the guitar, into the fuzz, out of the fuzz, into the wireless.
There you go.
I see.
Yeah.
All right? So, now, Brian May does this with his treble booster, and he has a treble booster glued to his strap. All right? So if you... There you go. Tape that on for me.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I'm totally nicking Richard's job here.
Not at all.
Just giving you a day off, mate, you know?
I need it.
You're used to dealing with rock stars. Today you've got Dan instead. There you go, mate. Look at that.
Okay. There we go.
You could play
So,
Wembley train station with that.
right. So here we go. And the fuzz is on? I can't
Yep,
see. Yeah,
fuzz is
okay.
on.
Well, there we go.
Brilliant.
And Brian May does the same thing, right? Put a germanium treble booster after a buffer. It's horrific. So Greg Fry.
Fryer.
So Greg Fryer makes him his treble booster that just straps onto a little pack on his guitar strap. So
has he got one of those for every guitar strap that he's got on stage then?
yeah,
So I don't know how many guitars does Brian take out, probably 6
Well,
or 8 or something. And
yeah, I think
he'll have-
he still plays his main one pretty much
for the whole set,
all the
does it?
time.
Right, okay.
But he,
So there'll be a
there's
couple
other
of spares
things,
kicking
but
about.
yeah.
Wow.
But that is a way to solve it. So
Yeah.
little fuzz on the strap. Happy
is.
days.
I think more practically is to craft your tone around the sound of the wireless.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
For sure.
Um,
But if you're an iconic
really-
guitar,
yeah,
exactly. If
exactly.
you're Brian May and your sound is that treble booster
Yeah.
into the AC30, that is the only way around it.
Yes.
You know. But man, that's really fun. I'd
Yeah.
be really happy to do that.
Yeah.
Not only that, if you use so this is a mini fuzz face, right? But if you've got like a bad Bob booster or something like that, they're only that big anyway.
Yeah.
So strapping it on the is fine. All right, look. So we know they sound different. We've worked that out straight out the box.
Yeah.
We know that they affect effects pedals differently. Before we come on to talk about analog, digital, and latency, Richard, you were saying that the more practical solution is to work with it.
Yes.
What have been some of your experiences with how bands and guitar players have sort of dealt with that, moving from cable to wireless, and some of the things that have happened in the rigs maybe?
Nowadays, lots of people are going full digital with the sound. So you've sold your soul to the devil. You know, I've got a digital wireless pack. So to then go, well, I need my analog fuzz this, I need my curly lead that. It's like, well, you've already thrown that in the bin by being here.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's actually all right at that point to then go into the digital world if you're that way inclined. Let's say if you're a session guy, it's so much easier just to have a quad cortex or a Kemper or something like that. And the tone sculpting in them is so advanced now, you can really pick out exactly that frequency that you think, well, it's a bit too glassy. You can pull that down and so on and so forth.
Sure.
And really, if you're one of those sound guys who really gets an ear for it, you can sculpt whatever you want. But then, as we were saying, you get latency issues with more and more digital things.
Yeah. But I remember going through the rigs with Biffy.
Yeah.
And so one of the things with I know there was an analog digital blend.
Yes.
And
Back in the day.
Back in the
used to
day.
be, yeah.
And then you eventually got rid of all the digital stuff and just went.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
Because of phase issues that we were having. And the phase was created by the latency of the digital.
Sure.
So running the digital with a clean Fender amplifier.
And phase is different.
Yeah, because it's behind it. You'd never get the waves in the same way.
Right.
And just getting them to line up was just so difficult.
Sure.
You'd end up having to delay the Fender back to the Kemper. But then when you change the Kemper patch, it changes the latency on it anyway, because if you're adding more stomps.
So you would need a separate, for every sound from the Kemper, you would need a separate latency thing on the digital desk.
Correct, yeah, which is daft, isn't it? Which is why I think I moaned to Kemper about this so loudly. But they've now put a fixed latency in the Kemper in the most recent upgrades, I think it is.
Okay.
So it's a fixed latency of 4.7 milliseconds.
So let's just talk about that for a second.
So everything goes back to that, if that makes sense.
So you're talking about latency stacking.
Yes.
All right. So I think all of these, I think the Line 6 has got 2.9 milliseconds. The Boss says 2.3. I'd be really interested to know how accurate that is, but that's what the things say. Let's say they're accurate.
Yeah.
And
the Shure's 2.
The Shure Digital's 2.
Yeah, 2.3, something like that.
Yeah. Now the Shure Analog.
Yeah. There's no latency.
No latency, right? Because we're using wireless. We're using radio frequency.
Yes.
And it's just transmitting directly, so there's no latency there.
Exactly.
Right? So one of the big advantages with the analog one, no latency, but can't do that anymore for various reasons that we've discussed. You've got latency in your wireless.
Yep.
And then from there,
you can, if you're, like I've just said, if you've gone right and going down the Kemper route, and you've got 4.7 milliseconds of latency there, so then we're up to, about 7 seconds, of latency.
Yeah.
You come out of the Kemper, you go into your digital desk, which adds another 2, something like that.
Up to 9.
And then you come out the digital desk, maybe that's running a wave server with a load of funny compression and stuff.
Okay.
So you can add another second on there.
Right.
And then you go into your digital in-ear system. So you're adding another 2 and a bit.
So up to 12, 13 milliseconds.
Quite possibly.
That's a
that
thing.
Comes to your ears and you play your guitar and you're like,
bing, bing.
Some people wouldn't notice it as a bing, bing. They just say it sounds weird.
Yeah.
And then they look at the guitar tech going, no, this sounds weird. And there's no way you can fix that.
Yeah.
You can't speed it up. The only way you can speed it up is by taking out the quad cortex or the Kemper and putting analog guitar pedals in to slow that down, because you will have wireless latency.
Yes.
You will have in-ears. You can't get away from that.
Okay.
Nowadays, everyone's got a digital desk. So you're going to have that.
Okay.
But the only person that I've seen at our level of touring is Bono, who has his wireless microphone, which goes underneath the stage. There's 4 monitor guys, 1 for each member of the band. Bono's vocal goes through a tiny little Midas Venice analog desk, so that he doesn't get the vocal latency to in his.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So you've got all these massive, great big motherships all going on in a tiny little Midas Venice.
We've got a Midas Venice desk.
Yeah.
Is it the same as ours?
Yeah. Oh, ours will be smaller, I think. But
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we talk about latency, the thing to keep in mind is that latency stacking.
Yes.
You're in that.
Because you won't hear 2 or 3 milliseconds. It makes no difference, because we're sat 2.5 milliseconds away from the cab anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're plugging a cable into that sounds exactly the same as
Yeah, but
in
then
the distance. But again, you're adding that to the latency
Yes.
stacking as well, aren't
yeah, okay,
Put it in context, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just come back into shot. Put it in context. So you're saying once we get the latency stacking,
you? Yeah.
we could be up to 10, 12 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Keeley makes a pedal called the 30 millisecond double tracker.
yeah,
30 milliseconds
Right.
is a discernible and massive tonal
Yes.
difference.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a third of that. It is because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that say, "Oh, you never discern it, you can't, blah blah blah," and as exactly what you just said, as a kind of you're never going to hear it like that.
No, but you
as
just
a
hang on it. Yeah.
something's not right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Fascinating.
And then you're chucking yourself out of phase with other things that are happening on stage as well. You know, it gets very strange, and something's not wrong, and you lose certain frequencies. Going,
It might actually help me
this,
get
you know?
behind the beat a bit more. About 12 milliseconds. Of,
Yeah.
It's like,
30, not 300.
Dan, yeah. Dan's really laid back tonight, isn't he? I'm going,
yeah. So then
Wow.
it affects your playing, and it affects your confidence. So it affects
yes.
everything that's gone. It's not just tone, is it? It's all about vibe and how cool you're feeling when you're giving it the big one. If you're giving it that, then it's coming a bit later, you know.
Right. So if we think about the smaller shows and the reason that a lot of acts are really reticent to go to wireless systems, they want their amps on stage, they want to be able to plug in and have that. It's to keep that experience as real as they can get it.
Yeah.
Once you have to go, because some people, as like with Biffy, you simply have to go wireless.
Yeah.
Then you just need to take all those things into consideration.
Yeah.
So, whereas Simon has gone wireless, but he's kept all the other stuff analog,
Absolutely, yeah.
and so analog amps on stage. So he's got the wireless, but he's still got that experience on stage.
And we use the wireless analog with Si as well.
There you go.
know,
so
so-
he has
so
no
we're really
latency
cutting
from
it,
his. Okay.
Apart from his in-ears. But again, we're so loud on stage anyway. His in-ears are more for vocal for him.
Okay.
So we've got like wedges, we've got side fills, and we've got the cabs on the stage.
Right.
So when you play it, you feel it
Yeah.
because there's no digital at all in the way of it, if that makes sense.
What do you notice is the biggest change between a system like that's pretty much all analog and someone that's gone all digital?
For me, fun, you know.
Oh, that's
'Cause
interesting.
You lose, like, we want to turn a pedal up, you can just turn it up.
Right.
You put your Kemper or even your Quad Cortex out. We're doing rehearsals, let's say with Stormzy. Everyone's got a laptop next to them and they go, "Oh, can we just turn a bit more reverb?" It's like 2 seconds, bring up a menu. I'll find that reverb, more of that. Like, as soon as you've done that, the moment's lost, isn't it?
Right.
It's
Okay.
like, where's all the vibe? Yeah, okay, it's great. And it sounds, obviously, they all sound incredible. And they're so versatile. But
Yeah.
just turn a knob
Yeah.
and just enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas the session guys who have to do it as a job, it is a job. So
Yeah. And they get used
a
to
great
dealing
job.
with it and doing it
Yeah, exactly,
quick and
yeah.
they know. Yeah. Okay.
But from a band side of things, it's like things just get so boring, just
Right.
so quickly, and then it doesn't sound quite as cool, and it's not as easy. Just let's have a bit more gain. It's
And
like
it's also
menu, you know.
the same night after night, right? There's no once it's locked into
Yeah.
that thing,
Yeah.
that production thing, and everything's been changed on click and MIDI, and it's like every night's cookie cutter,
Yeah,
whereas opposed to being still city of pants and
yeah,
okay.
That is required by that kind of
Of
music,
course, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
but that's so.
yeah,
But they are different experiences
yeah.
depending on and knowing that okay, if that's the way we're going to go, I need to be all over what's going on, latency wise, stacking wise, in-ears, all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, but it's just when you see real bands who look like they used to have loads of fun, all with digital modelers now, I don't think they're having as much fun as they used to have. When they got in a band with their mates and they just played some pedals and enjoyed it, like, it is better and more fun. I mean,
No, I mean,
but yeah,
of course,
okay.
we couldn't agree
talk about it all
more.
the time.
Right,
And-
yeah.
Absolutely.
But they didn't know that it's the latency issue.
Oh,
I
brilliant.
don't know. Maybe they did.
Oh, mate, this has been
No, we got
Epic.
more to do yet.
we got more to do yet, so let's
It's
edit
still
that bit
epic.
out because it's still
We're
epic.
still epic.
So I want to talk about range. We've got vastly different distances that we can traverse with these things.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The line 6 one, I think it says, is it 30 feet?
It is 100 feet.
100 feet, so 30 meters,
Mm-hmm.
right? 30 meters with the line 6 one.
I've never played in a venue that big.
That's with a relatively good line of sight, I'd imagine.
Line of sight. So, okay, so that means that the transmitter has to be able to be seen by the receiver.
It helps so that there's no big things in the way. Obviously, the pack's going to be behind you
Yeah.
when that's on your pedal board, so it does work through you all around you.
You're getting a nice bit of
Yeah.
X-ray thing happening
Yeah.
to your body. Okay.
I don't know how it works, but yeah.
The Boss, I think, is a bit longer.
Shorter, 65 feet.
65 feet.
Right.
Okay. So what's that? 25 meters or something?
Yeah.
Around that. Okay. The Shure analog version, what's that?
Very similar to the digital. I think they have them at 500 meters.
Okay. All right. So now we get to a big part of why these are thousands of pounds
Yes.
and these are hundreds of pounds. Okay. 500 meters. That's extraordinary. So as you get to the end of its range, right? And just so that everyone understands, the latency doesn't change.
No.
Right? So the analog version, there's still, if you get to 500 meters, there's still no
Yeah, you're
latency.
not 500 meters away.
Right.
But it takes a second for the sound.
It takes a second for the sound to get
Yeah,
to you,
yeah,
right? Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And the digital one, 2 milliseconds, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that remains 2 milliseconds for no, it doesn't matter the distance you're away from it.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So let's talk about then, because we're going to do a distance test in a bit, which is going to be awesome. I want to hear some of your experiences and things to keep an eye on when you're doing this.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, get yourself as high as you can with your receivers.
Right.
Which the ones we use on a big stage are. Here's one I prepared
That's
earlier.
okay.
So they're a directional one. So you would point that at the guy playing it, ideally, and you'd have two of them, space them quite wide to cover as much space as you can, or you can even go up to 4 with the new Shure stuff. And
you follow him on the stage with that.
you would you laugh, but that'd normally sit on a stand and you'd ignore it. But when like Maxim for the Prodigy, let's say on his wireless mic, jumps into the crowd, there is literally a guy who follows him and points at him. So he's running all the way out to front of house, and we've got a little roadie who stands and follows him around with one of these. And then you can see on the receiver, it's like absolutely bang on, no problem.
Because with the Fuzzes, Dave's guy was following him around.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Is that how they do it? Right.
It does. I mean,
No way.
I mean, he is.
Oh, he's all over the place.
It does
Wow.
explain it in part, doesn't it? Because on these ones,
Yeah.
we've got these for smaller distances, the shorter antenna.
Yeah, we've got the twigs in here because we're so close to it. We're in danger of getting an RF overload. So you start getting red lights, which is why I've even put the twigs down, because we're too
Oh, I see. I
close
just
to it.
messed it up.
No, it's good.
I thought it was a.
So I'm actually trying to hide the twigs because we're getting too much from it at the moment.
Oh wow.
And they go all the way round like that is their pickup.
Right.
So you'd usually have them both stood upright, and they're looking for it, and you'd never move them, or you certainly don't point them at them anything, because then it's going up and down, if that makes sense.
Right.
So you want it perfectly vertical, so it's going all the way around. Whereas with the flags, you point them at where your artist is going to be most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the fully pro rack units,
Yeah.
you've got the option of twig or shark fin.
Yeah.
But of course, with the sort of consumer level stuff, semi-pro, should we say?
Yeah. I know Shaw do a consumer level one like that as well.
They do, yeah.
That's really good. I think it's the same one that Simon McBride from Deep Purple uses, and it's built-in tuning and all that sort of stuff. But it's another step up again, closer to the max.
And I don't mean to be disparaging about it, because actually, for the size and the convenience, and the fact that you're not going to be more than probably 15 feet from the pedal board,
amazing.
And you don't have to deal with antenna or paddles or any of that.
And if there's only one of you playing with your one system, that's when you start getting loads of people, then you just cannot use them.
Right.
So, all right, he's got 6 channels. If you show up at the Cap and Feathers and channel 1's not working, go up to channel 6 and then that'll work. But, if there's 2 or 3 of you trying to do that, all with the same system, so don't buy it just won't work in a pub.
So,
and they block, right?
They do block. So, again, if you showed up to your small club show with the 2.4 gigahertz style stuff, and it's all digital, you have a sound check, everything's sounding great. You're on one frequency, I'm on another. We're okay, nothing's interfering. Then doors open, security show up, and they've got their cheap radios that they've bought so they can talk to each other from front of house to stage and so on and so forth. Or even sometimes the house techs have got the cheap radios. They press them, your guitar turns off. But you're like, I've been sound checking all day, we're absolutely fine. And it's not the signal doesn't degrade on the digital stuff. So you don't hear an interference. It's just on or off.
So you don't get the...
you don't get a warning.
Okay.
It's just, see you later.
What? So you have to find another frequency.
Then you go, all right, okay, I'll try, channel 3 instead. But
but the bass player's
may
on
or
channel
may
3.
not work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the bass player's on channel 3 and I go to channel 3, he'll turn off.
Yeah. And then you'll turn on, and then he'll and you'll sort of bounce between each other. Whoever stands nearest it, usually, it's chaos.
Okay.
How do you even begin to troubleshoot that?
Exactly, yeah. So maybe it is just the jack socket on your guitar, and you're like, my wireless has failed, because it's the instant thing you go to, isn't it?
Okay. What are some of the horror stories? I've got to, some of the. Tell me some.
From an operational point of view, I work for the Prodigy as well, and Rob, bless him, I hope he's watching. Hi, Rob. He's a live wire, and it's all part of the show. Yeah. So there's nothing personal, it's just an hour of a mad disco, it's like, off we go. So he finishes, he's playing bass at the point. I've got three frequencies, should I say, of wireless. So I do the set list. I start with song 1 is number 1, song 2 number 2, song 3 number 3, and then song 4.
These are different guitars.
It's a different guitar. It's a different guitar for every number.
Right.
Song 4 goes back to frequency 1, and so on and so forth. So I'm cycling myself through the set list.
Right.
And I've got it all set up in advance, and I've got it all mains and spares of everything. Everything's good. He sees his mate in the crowd who's waving at him. So he takes the bass off at the end of the number and throws the bass to him. And the guy in the crowd catches it amazingly. So it's like, cool, that's absolutely fine. Often he'll put it on security guards or do something fun with it, So that's why
security guards, that's gone.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
So I press the button for frequency 2. Here's your guitar, sir. And he's jumped off the cabs at that point. And with his heel, he doesn't know he's hit his tuner pedal. So he's muted his guitar, unbeknownst to anyone. Grabs the guitar off me, big scrang. I see it metering, no noise whatsoever. He takes it off, throws it at the drummer. So now I've got I've got 2 frequencies. One's in the crowd and someone's playing it. I can see that going. The other one's in the drum kit. So I'm down to my final frequency with the spare guitar. So I go, here you are, sir. This is all in about 4 or 5 seconds. Bang, there's a guitar. He plays it, doesn't work again. He throws it through the video screen.
Through the video screen?
Yeah, there was a bit of there's a drama after it, but it's all fine. So then I've got 3 guitars. None of them are with me, and they're all turned on. So where do you go from there? And then I see there's a red light on his board, which tells me it's muted. And I was like, So I had a spare frequency written down. I always do. So dialed it in. Quick pack change, infrared sync. There you go. Run on stage, unmute it. and the show continues. It was horrible. Like a mad 10 seconds of smash, 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 smash. Oh, Andy's playing again.
So that,
and then you've got to go and find all the guitars, turn them off, and then resync all your packs to the spare that you've done when he's not playing that one. And it's just,
I hope this gives you some sort of insight into the value of a good guitar tech. Because if you didn't know, the show he wouldn't have been able to continue playing.
No, because everything's on and you've got no way of turning stuff off. And
you had to troubleshoot that in seconds.
Yeah.
That's
with a mad
amazing.
Disco going on, you can't hear anything. So he's obviously shouting at you.
You're being pummeled at the same time. Oh, man. That's amazing. Okay.
Obviously, you have shows where you're playing and then someone backstage at the festivals turn their gear on and various bits of yours just start turning off. And at that point,
so they're sound checking or whatever, or
they're setting their gear up. Even if they've rolled in from another gig, they turn all their gear on to retune it during your show, and it may all be on the wrong frequencies, and blah blah blah. And it's quite frustrating.
But that's happened.
Oh yeah, it's happened plenty of times. But with the analog gear, because the signal degrades when you get either too far away from it or interference, you can sort of hear like, hang on a minute, there's something happening here. Whereas with digital, it just turns off if you get the interference. So with analog, it starts sounding really bad and poor, and then you can go, all right, maybe we'll do a quick change. Whereas digital, you do not get a warning.
It just goes off.
It just bang off it goes.
Man alive.
And then it really is panic stations, And people always blame the wireless, going, oh, we're getting interference. It could well just be your jack cable or something else failing. And, the wireless is gone.
Because one thing that's worth saying is, so the Boss and the Line 6 unit, they are unbalanced, straight quarter-inch cables in from the guitar. We haven't gone down the route of the really cheap Amazon 30 quid wireless, because they,
we know they're no good, so there's no point in talking about it.
So, but we know loads of guys are using these and they're great, and they're taking an unbalanced signal from the guitar straight in. The Shure units, they can also receive a balanced signal. So these are not just for guitars; these are for microphones as well. Yeah,
you could use, lots of all conferences use them for the lavalier mics,
right? Which is probably what they're mostly used for.
I would say so. Yeah, I think guitars are more of an anomaly for these guys.
Right. Yeah. So there's a special quarter-inch jack to the special input they've got.
Yeah, it's like a Nico connector, like a 4-pin thing, which you can do balanced or unbalanced into.
Okay.
However you solder it up.
Right. Awesome. Awesome, mate. We're going to do I'm going to go for a run and see how far I can get out of the building.
Great.
Before things.
And are we going to do that on the Line 6 and on the Shure?
Yeah.
To do a little comparison?
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. Thank you. I've learned so much today. I thought I had an idea, but it's really full on, especially when you're doing festival stuff and you've got so many channels of wireless you've got to deal with. I didn't know that, you had to, every single gig, you've got to then find the frequency and all that. I mean, it's amazing. All right, time to go for a run. So we're going to use the Shure Digital. You're going to point a paddle at me, is that right?
Yeah, I'm just going to set it up like we would in a big show. So it's pointing at where I think you're going to end up.
Okay.
It's not the most scientific of tests, but it's fun.
All right. And I'm just going to keep walking and see how far we get. Mick is on action cam.
I've got the... I'm going to follow down.
All right, we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So 3, 2, 1.
There you
So
go.
now I'm stood between a stone building and the...
Go on then, come back.
Wow.
Was that fun?
So we
That's
reckon,
ace.
we were about 70 meters, given that there was stone buildings and stuff. In
Yeah,
the
there was
way.
cars and doors and all sorts in the way there.
Yeah.
So should we replicate that using one of the consumer level units?
Yeah.
then?
Okay.
Now, bear in mind, this is not a fair test because obviously Richard was going outside with the directional paddle there. These things don't have that. They have their own antenna that are within the machines themselves. So, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, I taped right over the input there.
It's all right.
The output. That should remain the same, Dan, shouldn't it?
No. Yes, of course. Yes, that's right. You are correct.
I strap that on.
Strap that on
Right down.
right
here.
down in here. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
There you go. Not bad. I mean,
It's considering that we're outside,
yeah, and there's big walls everywhere.
but it just turns off, right? So that really does have to be line of sight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I suppose you might think, well, when are you ever going to go that far out? But I don't know, go off for a pee or go to the bar to get a drink. You could easily go between one of the walls. or
We're in
something.
quite a sterile environment as
Yeah.
well here. You know, we haven't got security guards or radios or anything else going on.
Yes,
We're out
of
in the
course.
countryside.
Yeah.
You know, in a very clean environment. When we scanned earlier, there was nothing here, which obviously helps. You know, as soon as you've got something else, even just the noise
Teasing on
floor
the edge
there,
of it.
then bang,
Okay.
it's going to cut it down even more.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Mate, that was so much fun. Thanks again for coming in. It's always great to see you. Coffee's always on, whenever you're passing. Thanks for watching. Massive thanks to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch. Got some new merch in the shop, so check it out.
Look at these lovely t-shirts, hats,
Michael.
shirts, other things.
Very nice. Massive thank you to our preferred retailers and, of course, to our patrons on Patreon for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.